Imagine this. You are standing in a grand hall, its floor a polished expanse of black and white marble, like a chessboard for giants. Before you is a game already in progress. The pieces are not carved from wood or ivory, but from bone and promise, from sacrifice and ambition. You have been taught the rules your entire life. Rules of fairness, honor, reciprocity, and good faith. You are told that these are the principles that build kingdoms, that forge legacies, that separate the noble from the base. You believe this. You believe it with the full force of your being. So you play. You extend your hand in trust. You make moves that are transparent, logical, and just. You sacrifice a piece to save another, assuming your opponent will recognize the nobility of the gesture. You adhere to a silent, suffocating courtesy, believing the game is won through moral superiority and strategic brilliance. And you are losing. It is not a sudden, dramatic loss, but a slow, methodical dismantling. A quiet, creeping decay. Your defenses are peeled back, layer by layer. Your strongest pieces are turned against you, captured not through superior force, but through traps you never saw because you could not conceive of a mind that would set them. Your opponent does not gloat. They do not roar in triumph. They simply watch you with an expression of profound, almost sorrowful pity, as if observing a child who has not yet learned that fire burns. And with every move you make, guided by your unimpeachable ethics, you feel the board shrink around you. The marble floor turns to quicksand. Your honor becomes a cage. This is the great, unspoken paradox that haunts the virtuous. It is the ghost in the machine of human affairs, the terrifying dissonance between the world as we are told it should be and the world as it is. Why do the noble so often pave the way for the ruthless? Why are sincerity and transparency so frequently repurposed as weapons against the sincere and the transparent? We are raised on stories of heroes who win because they are good, yet we live in a world that often rewards the calculated, the strategic, and the unburdened by conscience. What if the moral rulebook you were given was written by the very people who have no intention of following it? A beautiful, gilded cage of principles designed to keep you predictable, manageable, and ultimately powerless. What if compassion, in the face of an enemy who sees it only as a vulnerability, is not a strength but a form of strategic suicide? Look around you. Look at the silent architecture of power in your own life. In your workplace, in your relationships, in the very society that shapes you. Who rises? Who falls? Who writes the rules? Are you a player in your own life, or are you merely a piece, moved by invisible hands according to a logic you refuse to comprehend? Are you participating in your own subjugation, armed with a moral code that only serves your conquerors? 5 centuries ago, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli dared to document the mechanics of this brutal reality. He was not a monster. He was a political scientist, a doctor diagnosing a disease society refuses to admit it has. He wrote down the forbidden truths, the dark arts of power that operate beneath the veneer of civility. He was condemned for it, his name made synonymous with evil because he held up a mirror and humanity was horrified by its own reflection. We feared him not for his lies, but for his unbearable truths. And this leads to the most terrifying question of all. If you were handed that real rule book, the one written not in ink, but in shadows and blood, would you even have the courage to read it? Or would you turn away, preferring the comfort of your beautiful cage? The path to understanding this kind of power does not begin with studying others. It begins with an unnerving journey inward. It begins by confronting the reasons why we are so willing to be deceived, so eager to lose the game, as long as we can tell ourselves we played with honor. The prison is not the board. It is the mind that cannot perceive its own bars. That prison you inhabit, the one whose bars are invisible, was not built for you by some external tyrant. You built it yourself, brick by loving brick. It is a sanctuary constructed from one of the most powerful and dangerous of all human needs, the desperate, aching need for the world to be just. You crave a reality governed by cosmic fairness, a universe where karma is a law as immutable as gravity, where good deeds are eventually rewarded and malice is ultimately punished. This desire is not a weakness in itself. It is the very foundation of human cooperation, the psychological bedrock of civilization. But it is also your greatest vulnerability. This longing for a moral narrative is a potent anesthetic against the chilling chaos of existence. It is a beautiful story we tell ourselves to keep the darkness at bay, the darkness of a fundamentally amoral universe, one that operates not on principles of right and wrong, but on the unfeeling calculus of cause and effect, of power and its application. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw this with terrifying clarity. He argued that much of what we call morality is, in fact, a brilliant psychological weapon forged by the historically powerless. Unable to triumph through strength, they performed a kind of spiritual alchemy. They reframed their weakness as virtue. Think about it. Inability to exact revenge was rebranded as forgiveness. Subservience became obedience. Cowardice was sanctified as patience. This was not a conscious conspiracy, but a deep evolutionary survival strategy of the herd. This slave morality, as Nietzsche called it, created a value system that protected the collective by neutering the dangerous, ambitious individual. It is a code that champions the safe, the predictable, and the meek. This is the rulebook you were handed. It is an instruction manual for surviving within the flock, but it is utterly useless, and in fact, deeply dangerous when you find yourself face to face with the flock, face with a wolf who never agreed to its terms. The wolf is not evil. It is simply operating on an older, more primal set of laws. You, in your cage of virtues, see its actions as a moral transgression. The wolf sees only an opportunity. This is where the problem deepens, turning from philosophy to the dark terrain of your own mind. The psychologist Carl Jung proposed that every individual possesses a shadow, a vast, unlit repository of all the impulses, desires, and capacities we repress because they are incompatible with our conscious ego and the societal norms we have internalized. It is the home of your aggression, your lust, your envy, and your unbridled ambition. It is the part of you that understands the wolf, because it, too, has teeth. Society teaches you to fear and despise your shadow. You push it down, lock it away, and pretend it doesn't exist. You project it onto others, seeing evil in the world, in that ruthless competitor, that manipulative politician, that calculating rival, so you do not have to see it in yourself. Machiavelli's lessons are so profoundly disturbing, not because they describe some alien form of monstrosity, but because they give voice to the whispers of your own banished shadow. He articulates the cold, strategic thoughts you have had but immediately suppressed out of guilt and shame. The power he describes is the power of the integrated individual, one who has dared to descend into their own psychological underworld, to confront their shadow, and to harness its formidable energy. This does not mean becoming wantonly cruel or destructive. It means understanding the full spectrum of human motivation, starting with your own. It means you are no longer blind to the strategic possibilities of a situation because you have refused to acknowledge the part of your mind that is capable of conceiving them. Your opponent on that great chessboard is not necessarily a villain. They are simply someone who is more intimate with their own shadow. They can anticipate your moves because they understand the morality that limits you. But you cannot anticipate theirs because you have denied yourself access to the very parts of your psyche that would recognize their strategy. You are playing the game with half a mind. You are fighting a war with one hand tied behind your back by the very ideals you cherish. And so, the hidden problem is this. You are locked in a battle you cannot win because you have systematically blinded yourself to the nature of the battlefield, the nature of your opponent, and most critically, the full, complex, and dangerous nature of yourself. You believe you are fighting for virtue against vice, when in fact, you are a victim of your own psychological censorship. This profound failure of perception is not a passive state. It actively shapes your reality, leading to consequences far more devastating than simply losing a game. It poisons your potential, distorts your relationships, and quietly architects a life of perpetual reaction rather than deliberate action. This failure of perception is not a passive philosophical error. It is an active, corrosive agent in your life. It is the faulty code running in the background of your mental operating system, corrupting every decision, every interaction, and every assessment of your reality. It is a psychic fog that ensures you are always one step behind, perpetually reacting to a world you can no longer accurately perceive. The consequences are not grand and cinematic. They are subtle, cumulative, and utterly devastating. They are the 1,000 quiet paper cuts that bleed your ambition dry. You see it in the language of modern life. When someone acts with calculated self-interest, executing a plan that disadvantages you, your mind, conditioned as it is, scrambles for a moral explanation. You call them a toxic person, a narcissist, or simply evil. You have taken a strategic problem and turned it into a personal moral drama. This feels satisfying. It validates your sense of righteousness, but it is a catastrophic analytical failure. While you are busy judging their character, they are busy achieving their objective. You are playing checkers, agonizing over the morality of each jump. They are playing chess, sacrificing pawns without a second thought to capture a king. You are stuck in the why of their supposed immorality. They are focused on the how of their inevitable victory. This is the just world fallacy in action, a cognitive bias that whispers the soothing lie that the universe has a moral arc. Your brain clings to this belief because it provides comfort and predictability. The consequence? You become passive. You wait for cosmic justice to intervene, for the villain to get their comeuppance, for your own quiet virtue to be noticed and rewarded. But in the world of power, there is no cosmic referee. The reward for a well-executed, ruthless strategy is success. The consequence of passive, virtuous waiting is irrelevance. Your belief in a just world becomes the justification for your own inaction, the gilded cage you mistake for a fortress. Neurologically, your brain is complicit in this self-deception. It is a pattern-seeking machine that abhors ambiguity and complexity. The story of good me versus bad them is simple, emotionally resonant, and requires little cognitive energy. To analyze the situation from a Machiavellian perspective, to map out the interests, strategies, leverage points, and vulnerabilities without moral judgment, is hard, analytical work. It forces your brain into a state of uncomfortable, cold clarity. So, your mind defaults to the easier path. It chooses the satisfying fiction over the demanding reality. This is why you are so often surprised, so frequently blindsided. You are navigating a jungle with a map of a city park because the map is prettier and easier to read. This internal flaw is relentlessly exploited by the culture around you. Society has a vested interest in you remaining predictable and morally constrained. It bombards you with narratives, in films, in books, in news cycles, that reinforce the idea that good things happen to good people who follow the rules. This cultural conditioning acts as an immune system, attacking any deviation towards Machiavellian thought as a dangerous pathogen. To even speak of power in cold, instrumental terms is to risk being labeled a cynic or a sociopath. So you stay quiet. You conform. You continue to profess faith in a system that consistently fails you because the social cost of admitting you see the truth is too high. The ultimate unseen consequence is this: your virtues are weaponized against you. Your honesty makes you transparent to your rivals. Your loyalty makes you a predictable tool. Your desire for fairness makes you easy to manipulate with appeals to your conscience. Your empathy is used as leverage to extract concessions you shouldn't make. The very best parts of your character become the exposed handles and levers for others to control you. You are left in a state of chronic frustration, a quiet anguish of knowing you are intelligent, capable, and well-intentioned, yet feeling constantly outmaneuvered. You are a ghost at the feast of your own life, watching others consume the opportunities that should have been yours, armed only with the hollow comfort of your moral superiority. This is the trap, fully formed. The walls are your cognitive biases. The bars are the narratives of culture. The guard at the gate is your own terrified ego, unwilling to confront the shadow within. You are living in a prison designed to make you feel safe and righteous, while systematically stripping you of all agency and power. You now feel its suffocating closeness. You see how it has shaped your past and is defining your present. The quiet desperation it creates is no longer ignorable. To continue living this way is a choice to remain a willing, virtuous prisoner. Or you can choose rebellion. So you choose rebellion. But this is not a rebellion of torches and pitchforks. It is a quiet, internal revolution, a Copernican shift in your perception of reality. The first act of this rebellion is the most difficult. You must consciously abandon the search for moral justice in the actions of others. You must stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking the far more powerful question, "What is happening here and why?" You must trade the robes of the judge for the scalpel of the surgeon. A surgeon, preparing to operate, does not morally condemn the tumor. She does not waste time lamenting the injustice of the disease. She studies it. She understands its nature, its weaknesses, its relationship to the healthy tissue around it. Her analysis is cold, clinical, and divorced from sentiment because this detachment is what allows her to be effective, to save the patient. This is the mindset you must now adopt when you observe a power play in your office, a manipulation in a negotiation, or a betrayal in your personal life. Your first task is not judgment, but diagnosis. See the event not as a violation of your moral code, but as a display of a particular strategy. What are the objectives of the actors involved? What fears are driving them? Where is their leverage, and where are they exposed? By adopting this diagnostic lens, you achieve the first taste of freedom: strategic detachment. The emotional poison of indignation, resentment, and personal injury begins to lose its hold. An insult is no longer just an attack on your ego. It is a piece of intelligence, a signal that you have struck a nerve. A broken promise is not just a moral failure. It is a data point about your opponent's reliability and their true priorities. You are no longer a victim of the drama. You are a student of its mechanics. This shift in itself is a profound reclamation of power. The second act of rebellion is to turn this diagnostic lens upon yourself. You must finally open the door to the shadow you have kept locked away. You will not be consumed by it. Instead, you will interview it. What does your own ambition, unconstrained by guilt, truly want? What does your own capacity for cunning see that your polite, conscious mind has missed? In acknowledging these darker impulses, you are not surrendering to them. You are integrating them. You are bringing your entire intelligence to the table for the first time. Your shadow holds the key to understanding the motivations of others because it speaks their native language. By understanding your own capacity to be ruthless, you learn to recognize and counter ruthlessness with unparalleled clarity. This leads to the cultivation of what Machiavelli called virtù. This is not virtue in the sense of moral goodness. Virtù is a dynamic and formidable quality, a blend of courage, preparation, strategic intelligence, and the audacity to act decisively when the moment requires it. It is the ability to dance with fortuna, the unpredictable chaos of fate. A person of virtue is not bound by a single, rigid set of rules. They are adaptable, fluid, and focused on the outcome. Queen Elizabeth I of England possessed virtue. Surrounded by enemies, in a world that saw a female ruler as an aberration, she did not simply act good. She acted effectively. She was charming and ruthless, pious and pragmatic, a master of ambiguity who played her rivals against each other until they neutralized themselves. Her goal was not to be a saint, but to ensure England's survival and prosperity. Her morality was one of outcomes, the ultimate responsibility of a leader. To break free, you must begin to cultivate your own virtue. This means you stop defining your worth by your intentions and start measuring it by your results. What is the greater virtue? To maintain your personal sense of honor while your project fails, your team is dismantled, and your goals wither into dust, or to engage in the difficult, ambiguous, and sometimes morally gray work required to protect what you are trying to build? This is not a call to abandon your principles. It is a demand that you forge principles strong enough to survive contact with reality. Your new power does not come from becoming a monster. It comes from the realization that you have always had the capacity to fight monsters, but you chose to pretend they weren't real. You are no longer a sheep lamenting the existence of wolves. You are becoming a shepherd, one who understands the nature of the wolf and is prepared, with clear eyes and a steady hand, to protect the flock. You are learning to see the entire board, and for the first time, you are realizing that you are not, and have never been, just a pawn. You have begun the rebellion. You have exchanged judgment for diagnosis, embraced your own complexity, and started to grasp the meaning of virtue. You are learning the grammar of power, the physics of ambition. But here, at the precipice of true understanding, lies the final and most dangerous lesson, the one Machiavelli himself only hinted at. It is a truth so profound that it reframes the entire struggle. The ultimate purpose of mastering this dark game is not to win it. It is to transcend it. This is the paradigm shift that changes everything. You do not learn the brutal mechanics of the world simply to become a more effective player on its merciless chessboard. You learn them so that you can earn the right and the power to, in some small corner of your life, set up a different board with different rules. You master the art of power not for the sake of domination, but for the sake of liberation. The power you accumulate is not an end in itself. It is the raw material you use to build a sanctuary. You must become a warrior at the gates so you can be a philosopher in the garden. You must understand the wolf so you can protect the flock. You must be willing to engage with the cold, amoral calculus of the world as it is in order to create and defend a space for the world as it should be. This is the ultimate truth. The great frustrating paradox of your past, the constant defeat of your own virtue, was born from a catastrophic error. You were trying to cultivate a garden in the middle of a battlefield during a pitched battle. Your sincerity, your honor, your trust. These were the delicate seeds you were planting in soil soaked with the blood of conflict, and you were mystified as to why they would not grow. You were trying to live by the rules of the sanctuary while standing exposed in the wilderness. The struggle was never a sign of your weakness, but of a profound misunderstanding of your environment. To build the garden, you must first become a master of the battlefield. You must secure the perimeter. You must neutralize the threats. You must build the wall high and strong. This is the hard, thankless, and morally ambiguous work that the pure idealist refuses to do. And that is why the idealist's garden is always overrun. The pragmatic Machiavellian mind understands this. Power is the wall. It is the sterile, ugly, necessary structure that protects the beautiful and fragile life growing within. It is the freedom from having to constantly look over your shoulder, a freedom that allows for the genuine flourishing of trust, creativity, and love. This is a lonely path. The shepherd can never truly be one of the sheep again. Once you see the world in this way, once you understand the hidden currents of power flowing beneath the surface of every human interaction, you can never fully return to the comforting blindness of before. You will carry the burden of this clarity, the weight of seeing the game even when you wish you could ignore it. You will recognize the manipulations you once missed, the strategies veiled as sincerity, the ambitions cloaked in humility. This knowledge will separate you, but it will also set you free. For the first time, you will have a choice. You are no longer condemned to be a piece, moved by forces you don't comprehend. You are no longer a victim of a game you didn't know you were playing. Look at the board of your own life. See the pieces, see the players, see the invisible lines of force. You now possess the surgeon's detached eye and the shepherd's watchful gaze. The illusions have fallen away, and what is left is a reality that is stark, dangerous, but pregnant with possibility. The ultimate power is not the ability to conquer others, but the ability to architect your own reality, to author your own laws within the sphere of your influence. It is the power to protect, to build, and to create meaning in a world that offers none. The knowledge is now yours. The cage is open. The darkness was never the enemy. It was simply the landscape you had to learn to navigate to find your way home. The game is in motion. It is your move.